Hello friends, we are going to now begin program number 49, and we're making the transition into the petals of sacrifice. We're going to do the work on the synthesis for petal number 7. We see that these petals of sacrifice each have 5 colors associated with them, and so we can say that they are more associated with the soul. Just as the 4 colors of the love petals suggest association with the personality as a whole, and the 3 colors of the outer or knowledge petals suggest association with the vehicles of the personality. So let's see, I hope that we do not have this occasional sound which may be coming from local thunderstorms, a kind of static-like sound. I hope that we can avoid that. So we begin with a program not 40 but 49, and we always begin with a statement coming from the Tibetan. This will apply to the entire sacrifice tier, which is the tier in which we are mostly working at this point in our development as we seek to become disciples, a true disciple of the first initiation, and tread the path of probationary initiation and eventually the path of true initiation. We begin then with the quotation, "The inner circle of petals is organized and vitalized in the hall of wisdom," and I would say it also, in a way, unfolds in the hall of wisdom, and simultaneously the middle circle unfolds. So while this organizational and vitalizing work is being done in this inner circle of petals, there is unfoldment, and even complete unfoldment, gradually, of the central tier, the love tier. And simultaneously, the middle circle unfolds so that 2 rows of petals are duly opened as they should be, according to law, and only the 3rd remains to be unclosed. This final opening is effected during the period of treading the stages of the path of initiation, and in this round, we're very familiar with this, are we not? And in this round it is hastened by the rites of initiation and by the strenuous and abnormal efforts of the man himself, as aided by the electrical work of the initiator wielding the rod of power. We have gone over this many times, and one of the important things to be understood is that, in fact, there is such a strenuous and abnormal effort that the man himself succeeds on the probationary path to stimulate the awakening and unfolding of the at least of the 7th petal, and I think of the 8th, even before the rod of initiation is applied, opening it still more. So it's an opening which is affected not only by the rod of initiation, but by the strenuous and abnormal efforts of the man. Now, I think what I'll do here is get, well, I think this may do. Now, here is our quotation relating to this petal of knowledge for the will tier, or for the sacrifice tier. We remember that in the path of probation, 2 of the will petals are receiving attention, though I think the 7th petal is receiving even more attention necessarily, first things first. So our quotation is from those important pages, 539 to 544. The petal of knowledge for the mental plane, its unfoldment, that's a general term, marks the period wherein the man consciously utilizes all that he has gained or is gaining under the law, there's Saturn, for the definite benefit of humanity. This is no longer a personal motive, shall we say, no longer a personal motive. Each of the groups of petals is distinguished by a predominant coloring. Knowledge on the physical plane, with the coloring of the other two subsidiary. Love on the astral plane, with the light of sacrifice weaker in tone than the other two. The light of sacrifice will come in relation to the inner tier, the will tier, which practically show forth with equal brilliancy. On the mental plane, the light of sacrifice comes into full display, and all that is seen is colored by that light, and we, I think, can associate that particularly with the color yellow, which is also the color of harmony. It's the color of the fourth ray, and the law of sacrifice is particularly related in the laws of the soul to the fourth ray. So again, what we want to look at here, the petal of knowledge for the mental plane, its unfoldment, marks the period wherein the man consciously utilizes all he has gained or is gaining under the law, Ray 3 and Saturn, for the definite benefit of humanity. He controls the manner, shall we say, in which he helps, excuse me, by referring to the law. So this is the throat center is obviously very important. Let's just say there is a lawful expression of good in service. And the quality of, I think I have to make this always the UK English. And let's see, and the quality of bestowal is marks this period. Excuse me, not quite over this unfortunate flu. It is a sacrifice, let's say, is giving or bestowal. And we shall find that although there is still much when working in petals number 4, 5, and 6, which relates to acquisition, here we will relate more to bestowal. So there is still, let us say, there is still acquisition in relation to the middle tier, or working in the middle tier. But here, in the sacrifice petals, the objective is to give, and in this case, to give intelligently, as that's the only way that true service is rendered. We have this phrase in relation to the third ray, which is very important for this first petal. It's called the utilization of the many for the one. Maybe I can find the place where that quote is found. I'll just put it in here in general and see if we have that utilization. Okay, first, utilization of the many for the one. Let's see. Okay, there are quite a few of them, but we'll see if we can find that particularly. Not sure. I know it's associated with the third ray particularly, and this petal has a lot to do with access to the abstract mind and to the third ray. The utilization of force, okay. Well, I'm not finding that, but I know it is present, and probably my problem is that I am not using the quote, but when I do, I come up with a 0, you know, so it is there. It's disappointing not to be able to find it particularly, but it is, I know it's associated particularly with the third ray. The one becoming the many, separation of matter. Here it is. For the use of the one, the process of, when the third ray of active adaptability, activity and adaptability, is the egoic ray, we're talking about the accumulation and what we call the process of the utilization of the many for the use of the one. It's just a little bit different, and that's why I couldn't find it. Okay, so we'll put it in that way. The utilization of the many for the use of the one. He uses everything that he has gained or is gaining under the law in service. Okay, and I think I've already looked this over. We've already had this particular next paragraph. The light of sacrifice is coming into full display. All right. Now, the two places in cosmic fire where each petal is most completely described are the area around the 500s, 539 to 545 or 546, and then also 822 to 824. So we'll look at the quotation here in 822 to 4. Petal number 1, the will to sacrifice through knowledge on the mental plane, and thus intelligently to dominate the entire threefold lower man, and we might say, and bend all of its abilities towards service. That is what the domination is for, so that the activities of the lower man do not interfere with the intended intelligent service. And the colors are yellow. Well, let's just say yellow is the first and sacrificial color. Yellow is characteristic of the inner circle, rose of the middle circle, and orange most characteristic of the outer circle, though present in all the petals. So we have yellow, orange, green, violet, and rose, and probably helps us to look at them. Yellow, orange, green, violet, and rose. And we will get to the meaning of the colors, of course, but by now you well know them, and you know that there is a similarity between petal number 1. You see the violet, green, and orange, and here it is, violet, green, and orange. And also petal number 4. You see the rose, the violet, the green, and the orange. Now, whatever side the rose is on, I suppose it's meant to appear as if it's on this side, although it's not marked so clearly. All right. So, thus, the will to sacrifice through knowledge on the mental plane. Think about that. In order truly to serve, we have to serve intelligently. It's not enough to have the sentiment of service and to want to rush in there and do something helpful, as often for self-relief as to really help the problem. So how do we do this? Well, we disseminate knowledge. We have knowledge of the particular means of alleviating a problem. We disseminate knowledge. We share the light. All of this is a form of sacrifice, a form of giving. Giving, sharing, all of that is sacrifice. To sacrifice means to make sacred, and the will of God is to give of itself fully and appropriately, so there may be fulfillment below of the archetype which is stable above. So your act of sacrifice comes through the sharing, the giving, the offering, the applying, the utilization of knowledge. We can understand that this is in many ways a mental petal in a tier associated with the mind. It's the knowledge petal of the will tier, but the will and sacrifice tier is associated with the mind, and the mind is associated with the soul. The lower mind and the soul are both on the same plane, the plane of mind. So we have intelligent sacrifice and utilization of knowledge on the mental plane, and is the word dominate, and thus dominate the entire threefold lower man. As I've spoken before, the word dominate is related to dominant in music. It is the soul note. So the note of the soul becomes greater than all of the other notes, and they cannot resist its general quality, its general value, its general meaning. So we're using the will, and the will in one respect is Vulcan. Vulcan has a first-ray soul, we understand, and our first exposure to real soul will is coming through the impress of Vulcan. We're using the will Vulcan, and we do not let our lunar vehicles get out of control. So we can see how some of this could relate to work at the first initiation, whereby the physical body has to be dominated by means of the etheric body by the will of the soul. So even though there may be a battle, we do not let the lunar vehicles get out of control. We will to control the lunar vehicles, and hence Vulcan is so important in this petal. We probably realize that we can find a way excuse me, to feature all of the different planets with some sort of role in each one of the petal processes. It's interesting that Leo is very connected with the first initiation, and this first initiation is connected very much with the seventh petal, for it is here that the rod of power is applied by the Bodhisattva. So Regulus is an important star in the constellation Leo. Some have felt it has a very first-ray, seventh-ray meaning because of its connection with regulation, and here it is the physical vehicle which must be regulated by the will of the soul working through the etheric vehicle. Maybe that will do it, etheric vehicle. So we're into certainly preparing for the first initiation, and even following it, we're into serious discipline, and of course we're entering a Syrian regime of activity. So we could also call it serious discipline, or disciplining ourselves under the law from Sirius, which works through the rites of initiation. Sacrifice it can also be said acting from the center. In some ways, the will is our center. It is our inmost faculty, of course. Still more central is being itself. But it is our inmost faculty. And we act from this center, again suggesting Leo, very prominent at the first initiation, acting from the center through knowledge, not just through emotional impulse. That is so important, you know, not just through emotional impulse, because now our focus as a good probationer is on the mental plane. Depending, of course, the degree to which it is that way depends upon our ray. So we're acting from the center, where the will stands, in the center of all, in the center of the will of God I stand, and what we act with or sacrifice with is knowledge. We sense the flow, something flows into us, and we have to allow it to flow out. There's going to be some soul reception. Already in the second tier of petals, we have come to terms with the idea and even the experience that there is a higher of the pairs of opposites. And now we are really trying to make ourselves subject to another Leo word, you know, the king and the subject. We're trying to make ourselves subject to that higher will. We're becoming very serious about regulating our lives to become subject to the higher will. So we share the little we know. We always know little, you know. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. All knowledge is a little knowledge. Knowledge is a dangerous thing. Okay. At the level that we know. We share what little we know at the level we do know. We share the light. There is a continuity of the flow through receiving and through giving. I mean, we are really at this point making application to the spiritual path. We are making serious application to the spiritual path, and once the first initiation is taken, we are really on the spiritual path. Well, should it be capitalized or path? I wonder if I wrote, no, that's positive, okay. So we are learning to the lesson of renunciation. Something of the Buddhic quality is entering. We are learning how to give up what we have received for the good of others, that is, for the good of the larger self. And I guess we had a little fun with this. We said we're turning from Chela on the loose to Chela in the noose, meaning the disciplines are really being applied to us around the neck, so to speak. Vulcan rules Taurus, Taurus rules the neck. We have to watch our words as we prepare for the first initiation, and in this petal we take the first initiation, and the unfoldment continues. We've looked at the colors, yes, and we've discussed them a little bit. Color yellow, sacrifice, and also intellect. Color orange, vitality and also will. Color green, activity and adaptability. Color violet, order and connection of the highest and the lowest. And the color rose, devotion. They are all going to be here. And the fact that the colors actually begin to repeat themselves tells us something about the preservation. The fact that the colors begin to repeat themselves tells us about preserving and retaining that through which we have passed and capacity which we have generated. Because as you see, you know, the same colors keep on appearing, you know, through petal 1, through petal 4 and petal 7, and through petal 2, petal 5, and let's see, petal 8. Do the colors appear? Yes, they appear again, only there's only one rose. Really, the double love petal is the 5th. And also, I suppose, petal 3 and petal 6, we can see that immediately. And then everything that is found in petal 6 is also found in petal 9. So there is a retention of achieved quality. We can call it that. Retention of achieved qualities. Well, okay, now we have reached the point where we are going to begin to go through the outline. Actually, the outline does have 80 points, but we've done this for the synthesis of each one of the petals considered so far, and we kind of know maybe now what we're doing. Maybe it won't take quite so long, but I cannot promise that specifically. I know it takes a while to work in these larger collections where we try to correlate many things, but the effect in the mind should be overall a synthetic one. So this is the tier of sacrifice, and the division of the tier is the sacrifice knowledge petal. Here it is, sacrifice, and secondarily knowledge. It's the knowledge petal for the tier of sacrifice, or the circle of sacrifice. The element most associated with this tier, well, I'm using the element fire. I believe it is correct. The outer tier petals, where the man is very much enmeshed within the senses, even in the astral senses, let us say, without a clearly defined sense of his own soul center, is the earth. And then the tier, the element for the sensitive second tier is water, where he is developing his the emotion of love. Love is not an emotion, but emotions filled with love. In that second tier, water is appropriate, because water is the symbol of sentiency. And now we come to fire, because the mind is fire. Agni, the fire of mind, is here indicated. And the next and innermost tier is air, because the air is life, the air is God. I've gone over this before. So this is a fire tier, and but is it a fire petal per se? The division of the elemental triplicity most associated here, we have chosen Sagittarius and also Aries, and either one of them will work. You know, one we have been using excuse me, we have been beginning the each tier elementally with a cardinal sign, and of course we could begin with Aries and end with Sagittarius. From another perspective, because of the orientation of this tier of petals, seemingly moving in another direction to the way the outer and the middle tier have moved, we could begin it with Sagittarius. But Sagittarius is certainly associated with the higher mind, and so is this petal. And Aries has its own connection here. Sagittarius related to the higher mind, or should it be Aries? Aries related to the third degree. Well, but also Aries is related to the first degree, and to beginning the path of probationary initiation. So this is the entry into a new aspect, a second aspect. We are experiencing the birth of the Christ, the birth of sacrifice, the birth of the sacrificial lamb, of the sacrificial attitude within ourselves. And so Aries can relate to this type of entry. Somewhere we are saying here that the centaur now is getting its wings to become Pegasus, the winged horse, which is ruling the second decanate of Aquarius. We'll get into the decanates as we go. You know how much we tend to correlate things here. Sagittarius is the body, however, in the fire signs. Leo, the soul, and Aries, the spirit. If you hear little staticky noises, I think it is largely because of the ambient thunderstorms here. We're having one of those very rainy summers in Finland. Occasionally I think there are that kind, looking for a bright sunny day. So we know how important the body is for the first initiation. The first initiation deals with the control of the body and even well, we can't really say not of the entire personality, but it's the body particularly. It is the Lemurian initiation, and Sagittarius has a particular relation to the body. But then so does Aries. We can say that. But when we're looking at the fire signs, DK has given us this division whereby Sagittarius is the body, Leo the soul, and Aries is the spirit. And because Aries is the spirit, it has a particular connection, I think, with the ninth petal. So I'm happy beginning either way, but I tend to think Sagittarius would be a good way to begin. And yet when we number it, starting from Aries at the very first petal, we're really reaching Libra by the time we get to this seventh petal, and we do reach Sagittarius by the time we get to the ninth petal. So, you know, what we have always is different perspectives, and it's not that any one of them is absolutely right. They all are part of what the all-seeing eye sees. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so we are reversing the wheel. The wheel is reversed, at least initially. This is happening during the fifth petal process, when we really start going for whatever the higher power represents to us. The wheel is reversed, and thus we are starting with the mutable group. Now, I've pointed this out before, but notice how things seem to move counterclockwise in the outer tier, 1, 2, 3, and in the middle tier, 4, 5, 6, clockwise. But now, well, let's see, how are we doing this? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, okay. Now we seem to be moving in a different direction. Petal 7, 8, 9, and this is a clockwise movement. At least this is the result of the way this egoic lotus is drawn, is rendered. And whether there is a real distinction between the ways that the sacrifice tier moves compared to the knowledge and the love tier, I cannot be certain. I have a feeling that they all three move in the same direction ultimately, and that the synthesis tier is rotating in a different direction, which I will call clockwise. And I think this does happen. Yeah. So this is really a clockwise. I think I've gotten a little confused here. Let me start from the beginning, okay? The 1, 2, and 3 are moving in a clockwise direction. The 4, 5, and 6 in a clockwise direction. But 7, 8, and 9 are moving in a counterclockwise direction. Forgive me for that. And maybe that is the case with the synthesis petals. Although when you look at how the Earth is actually rotating and revolving, it seems to rotate and revolve from a superior perspective in a a counterclockwise direction, and the rotation, the gyration of its axis is clockwise. Well, maybe we can correlate these in some manner. There doesn't seem to be an exact correlation here, but we do know that the gyration of the axis is in a different direction than its rotation and its revolution around the sun when seen from a superior perspective. If we were underneath it all, what we consider to be viewing from the South Pole, then everything would change. Okay, forgive me for that little mess of mind, okay, but I think we have it now. Okay, so Aries is related to the first initiation, but Sagittarius not to the third, and yet to the lead up to the third degree. Because, if let's just say that you're born with a very strong Sagittarius Capricorn, the possibility of moving from, now this is not for everybody, of course, we can't say that if it's in your chart, it's definitely this. It really depends at what stage you find yourself. But if you find yourself definitely passing through the second degree, the chance to pass through the second and the third is given with Sagittarius and Capricorn. Sagittarius body, Leo consciousness soul, Aries spirit. Okay, that we do understand. Okay, which of the fires is most associated with this petal? Well, solar fire is certainly emerging with the first initiation. A solar fire emerging with the first initiation. For all of these sacrifice petals, solar fire is emerging. It has been really emerging from the time the solar angel has taken control of the evolutionary process and became a downward gazing soul at the fifth petal. Excuse me. Okay, it is the fire by friction aspect of the sacrifice petals. So, it's solar fire is prominent in each, but this is solar fire sub fire by friction. We can think of there being kind of a ninefold solar fire because the entire egoic lotus, especially the 9 petals, are comprised of solar fire, which are the solar fire correspondence to what is happening in the lower worlds. The qualities harvested in the lower worlds, even though they might be in the frictional worlds due to fire by friction, are stored more as solar fire in the ninefold egoic lotus. So we're dealing with the knowledge aspect of the sacrifice petals, and knowledge is particularly related to fire by friction, just as love is related to solar fire and will to electric fire. So fire by friction will remain as long as we do have a personality, and we're even at the third degree with the complete unfoldment of the 9 petals, we still have a personality. But the soul is infusing. And as I've said, this petal is most related to the body because at the first initiation, the control of the body by the mind, let us say, through discipline is the most important factor. Okay, now we're at number 6 in the outline. What would be the planar focus most associated with this petal? And, well, of course, the mental plane is associated with all of these petals, but I would say there is a reflection of the higher mental plane in this petal. Just as in the 8th petal there's a reflection of the Buddhic plane, and in the 9th petal, in a way, the Atmic plane, which would connect it quite strongly, I think, with the will and with Aries. So we're reaching into the higher mind, and we can meditate. We can begin to reach the egoic lotus. Meditation comes into the range of activities that we want to perform. I suppose it depends on whether we're trained occultly. Some people can go through these phases of the first initiation and perhaps not have occult terminology at all. Okay, some different suggestions were made here. What we found is there is higher intelligence is active to a degree in the second tier of petals. Now, if we turn to, let us say, page, around 823, let's see about this. 823, what does it say? No, we don't want that. The document, here it is. Okay. Higher knowledge applied through love on the physical and astral planes. That's the fourth petal. Higher intelligent love. The whole idea is higher when we come to the middle tier. And higher knowledge is even associated with the fourth petal. So a kind of higher mind link, not just higher knowledge, but something that connects with the abstract mind can be found here. We are beginning to disengage from preoccupation with the lower worlds. Initiation is in many ways an abstracting process, but it does reinvest us through service. It was suggested here there's a difference between assessing our best as a personality and accessing our best as a personality and accessing the solar angel. There's even a difference, I think, between accessing our own egoic nature and accessing the solar angel in its fullness. Well, the monad has touched the soul, even though unconsciously, to the personality mind, beginning at the first initiation. Let's just say here, begin at the first initiation. And now the higher mind is influencing our approach, and we are reaching into the higher mind through meditation. So some sense of higher mind, it may not have to be, the abstract mind per se, it could be also, but at least the higher three subplanes of the mental plane are becoming important to us. We're still focused on the mental plane, most definitely, and we are trying to control our life and guide our life through bestowals, through gifts from the mental plane. The mental plane carries will, but the higher mental plane is becoming more accessible, and we're beginning to, I think this is an important one, see more meaning in things. Now, meaning requires perspective. Requires perspective. And Sagittarius is always a sign of broader, or at least possibly so, broader perspective. There's also the sense in which Sagittarius can focus very narrowly upon its ideal, but when we're talking about the realm of mind, Sagittarius does open out to a greater vision. So we're seeing the connections between things. We're perhaps able to access what we call spiritual discernment, which is the city of subplane 3 on the mental plane. Then in petal 8, we access response to group vibration, and petal 9, we access spiritual telepathy. Well, how would it be called? Let's see here. If we go back, I believe it's called, oh, there it is. Okay, this is the chart that Keith Bailey made for AUM. It's a very helpful chart. Spiritual telepathy, that's what it's called. And, you know, interestingly enough, three things go together. Spiritual telepathy goes with abstract mind and with Sagittarius. So there's another reason that we can put Sagittarius at the ninth petal, but at the same time we are accessing the higher mind, and Sagittarius is related to that at the seventh petal. So there's this network of interrelationships that we're trying to understand, and through the intuition, the salient aspects of the moment will be revealed. We don't always have to deal with 10,000 things. The intuition will home in on the on that which is of the greatest importance in our present moment within the context in which we are working. These little thunder things happen here, so moments of static. Apologies for that. Although I haven't quite learned how to control the weather in Northern Europe or anywhere else. It is coming. Hope we do a better job of it now than we did in Atlantis. Anyway, is there a permanent atom or unit or antichironic phase most associated with this petal? Well, I would say the mental unit and the monastic permanent atom and the antichirana that correct it. We can, working here, we can get a vision of the spiritual triad. We can grasp a vision of the spiritual triad. So both poles of the mind can be found here. If we work in petal 8, we can begin to have the antichirana stretch beyond the monastic permanent atom, and in petal 9 perhaps it can touch the atmic permanent atom. Of course, these are, you know, sort of hard and fast correspondences and not necessarily 100% true in real and practical life, but let's just say this broader understanding of what life can be, this almost philosophical vision associated with the third ray that is connected with this petal number 7, this is part of the experience of that petal. Anyway, we are trying to make the mental unit brighter. We are beginning really to control our life from the mental plane, and especially as that mental plane is influenced by the higher mental plane on which the soul is found. The later petal development here gives us the first part of the antichirana building, right? Linking of the mental unit with the monastic permanent atom, our normal mind dealing with concretions, with the mind that can deal with categories of things, with abstractions. And it will probably be built at first. Within some of the work done in this petal, because there are many lives that concern this seventh petal. And the question arose here, will the number of lives spent in this petal, because between the first and second initiation there's a lot of work to be done. Much of it's done in petal 8 or in the kinds of experiences and capacities associated with petal 8, but there's still more to be done in terms of expanding the higher knowledge, the wider perspective in petal number 7. So as the Christ approaches, and in this period of the forerunner, And during the Aquarian age will the number of lives that we have to spend working in this petal begin to decrease. As we rise through the petals, in general, fewer and fewer lives are spent in the experiences related to the petals. When it comes to petal, if you can take the second, third, and even fourth initiation in the same life as DK, states point blank in Initiation Human and Solar, pages 84 to 85, then the work done and the unfoldment, the work done in petal 8 and 9 and beyond, and the unfoldment which follows that work must proceed very rapidly. A lot of the organizational work will lay the foundation for this rapid unfoldment, but it seems that we have enough to build on to even perform the organizational work relatively rapidly. I would say that working in a strenuous and abnormal manner in petal number 8 may take some lives because there is much distance between the first and the second initiation. So there we're working mostly, I would say, in petal number 8 and still somewhat in petal number 7. But then once the second initiation is taken, then everything winds up very quickly. At this point, we've been told that the physical permanent atom and the astral permanent atom are equally radiant. Well, I think especially once the second degree is taken. And the mental unit is becoming ever brighter. I would say by the time the second tier of petals is completely unfolded, which signifies, to me at least, the second initiation, then the astral permanent atom and physical permanent atom are equally radiant. And there's a lot of work being done in relation to Scorpio and petal 8 on the mental unit, because Mercury is very connected with this mental unit, and the Mercury has a very strong connection with Scorpio, which is connected with petal 8. So the physical permanent atom and astral permanent atom will be equally radiant by the time we unfold the second tier. The mental unit, even now in this seventh petal work, is becoming ever brighter, and the first part of the Antakarana is being built as we approach solar fire through meditation. That's so important that fire by friction be gradually overcome by solar fire. So we are, shall we say, I think this is interesting how it's said, thinking towards the abstract mind. The abstract mind sees the big picture, and we are dwelling more in the world of higher thoughts and ideas. There's the higher mind and the abstract mind, and both are becoming accessible. Higher mind and the abstract mind both are becoming more accessible. I think it's interesting how Libra, which is associated, of course, with this seventh petal, is often implicated in mathematics. I suppose the whole idea of working with equations is a Libran kind of factor. And Sagittarius gives the soaring mind, and I saw very interesting, this man who had tremendous abstract mind. He was named Georg Cantor, and he developed theories of infinity in a mathematical way. He had Jupiter and Uranus in Aries, so it certainly opened up the realm of the abstract very powerfully. Okay, so the first part of the Antakarana is really from the mental unit to the egoic lotus itself and to the knowledge petals, and that part of the Antakarana is ruled by the planet Saturn. But there is going to be an approach to the soul, so even the first part of the Antakarana which is not the antikarana we usually deal with, will be stimulated here. As a man accesses the soul via the mind. So, excuse me, what is the first part of antikarana building? Well, to discover the observer, the attitude of the observer, and the interplay with the egoic lotus, and that much of the egoic lotus which is that much of the solar angel which is invested within the egoic lotus, working with the higher mental plane and the egoic lotus on the second subplane of the higher mental plane, because we are moving towards the first degree here, and in a way in this petal take the first degree, even though it is the fifth petal that is completely unfolded at the first degree. So we are definitely oriented towards the higher mind whereon the soul is found, and the egoic lotus changes its position around the time of the first degree and then is attuned to the second sublevel of the higher mental plane. We're at first, at least, in the work of this petal, I'll put it there. At first, At first, in the work of this petal, we are not yet building the bridge to the monastic permanent atom. In the early petal 7, there is no true antikaronic bridge, but perhaps later. Let's say the first span of the antikaronic triangle is there, and, well, I would say the ability to think abstractly is coming in, and that is an important part of the antikaronic triangle. The antikaronic triangle, I think you can pretty well see that, is here. This is it. And the ability to think abstractly has to do with this part of the bridge. The movement towards what we simply call higher mind is this part of the bridge, and that which will lead directly to the abstract mind is coming a bit later. I think it comes very much, the antikarana per se comes in the work of petal 8, but maybe also in the later work in petal 7. You know, as we approach the second initiation, we are more in a position to really build the rainbow bridge. The work of the first initiation is to contact the soul, and gradually we learn to think abstractly, and in the latter part of the period between the first and second initiation, we are more successful at building the bridge. But I would say that reaching towards the abstract mind is one of the qualities we might associate with this rather third ray petal. Petal number 7 associated with Libra, third ray. In building the antikarana, the will of the soul, according to its ray, must be pulled in to stimulate and fortify the mental unit before projection is possible. So we are not projecting just as a personality, but as a more soul-infused personality. We need discipline for this. We're learning discipline in our mind. We study, we meditate, we serve, and we do these things with regularity. Some of the seventh ray can be associated here too, because Libra is the seventh sign. And the order of signs, well, let's just say when we start at Aries with the first petal, we reach seventh petal as Libra. That's one way to assign to the petals, to start with Aries at the first petal and simply count forward. So in order to control the lower man, as we are told here we do, let's see, what was it, page 5, well, let's see, the will to sacrifice through knowledge on the mental plane, and thus entirely, intelligently, to dominate the entire threefold lower man. So we have will, the will to sacrifice, and knowledge enables us to carry out the sacrifice, and thus we dominate the entire lower man. The seventh ray is involved as we attempt to control, we might say through Regulus and the seventh ray, the lower man. Now, there's a lot of Vulcan, a lot of seventh ray, a lot of first ray in this first initiation. So, and the seventh ray is the ray which rules the first initiation. So we're really learning how to approach with regularity and with rhythm. I would say it's very important at this petal. Ray 7, the ray of regularity. In petal 6, when we're organizing petal 6 and so forth, we would not have begun this kind of approach. Someone said, well, look, you can be in a convent or a monastery in petal 7 too, and I think that is true either as we prepare for the first initiation or after we've taken it. I think those in the convents and monasteries are looking forward to the actual meeting of the Christ, the birth of the Christ in the heart, or they have experienced it and they are seeking to cultivate it. So at the first degree as well, I want to say that, and it's an unusual thought that DK gives us, that the mind itself is ruled by the seventh ray, as well as the brain by the seventh ray. So if, let's just put it like this, that if this seventh petal is related to the first initiation, then the seventh ray will be important in relation to it, because we can have a seventh ray mind and a seventh ray brain, and the seventh ray is the ray which is central to the first initiation. And of course Libra is the seventh sign, and while we're not told that it distributes at this time the seventh ray, there is much about Libra which suggests the seventh ray, including its rulership esoterically by Uranus. So in general we could say that the body wants to do what it wants to do, but the etheric body, which is subject to higher energies, says you will follow this pattern, and that is discipline. That is the kind of control, the domination that we're talking about here in relation to petal 1 for the sacrifice triad. The will to sacrifice through knowledge on the mental plane. We are being mentally focused. The throat center is very important. And thus, through our mind, which is responsive to the higher reach towards the soul, through our mind, to intelligently dominate the entire threefold lower man, more for spiritual purposes than for personal purposes. The buddhi has begun to infuse the soul, and during the initiatory process, buddhi becomes stronger and stronger, and the foundational altruism can be found through buddhi. Okay, I think, these are many correlations. They are number correlations, but we have to see what energies are important at this particular juncture in our development. Okay, then, we're at point number 8. It's a good thing we have this 80-point outline, which the points of which always stay the same. As I said, one of my colleagues who helped me organize this better than it was, has included a number of other categories about which I've been able to say a few things. And there are probably many more categories as well that we can bring in, using the Egoic Lotus as a kind of point of synthesis with which to understand the entirety of human evolution. What hall are we dealing with now? Well, we're entering the hall of wisdom, definitely. At the first initiation, that hall is entered, and even before, to a degree, at least the spiritual kingdom is entered even before, as we are told with the unfolding of the fourth and the fifth petals, the spiritual kingdom is being entered, which is really interesting. I think from the time that the person becomes an aspirant, and especially a probationary disciple, the spiritual kingdom is being entered. So real wisdom here is the perspective of a higher intelligence. The solar angel is a higher intelligence, and we are gradually growing into the perspective of the solar angel, and then into the perspective of the planetary logos, once the Antakarana is built. So we are reaching towards an abstracted or detached understanding and wisdom. So if we have entered the hall of wisdom a little earlier, I think we have, it is when there is a true orientation towards the higher of the pairs of opposites. We enter when there appears a true orientation towards the higher of the pairs of opposites. The wisdom we are gaining relates to, let's just say, relates to the laws of the higher life, a deeper contact with the solar angel, who is the source of wisdom. And our penetration into the hall of wisdom only increases as our work goes on through the sacrifice petals and then synthesis petals. And we remain really in the hall of wisdom for a long time. As I've said, is there such a thing as the hall of life, which brings us into the mysteries of being? Well, we're not given such a thing. I don't think we are. Just check this out clearly. Try that. I don't think so. No, we're not given anything called the hall of life, but we do speak of the shores of life, that's for sure. The ocean of life. Okay. Excuse me. So that is that point. I cannot say that the aspirant who begins to aspire through work done in petal number 5 is really yet in the hall of wisdom, but is making a transference from the hall of learning towards the hall of wisdom. And remember, when we talk about learning, we talk about learning that there is a duality in man, and that there is a higher of the pairs of opposites, which is in contrast to the obvious of the obvious self, the personal self, and that this higher of the pairs of opposites is a worthy and eventually irresistible goal for desire and aspiration. What world are we entering here? And there are these different worlds. Point number 9, of the senses, the emotions, the mind, the world of meaning, of significance, of being, and of causes and purpose. Well, I think it's the world of meaning, because the world of the soul is the world of meaning, and we are coming into ever deeper contact with this world of the soul. So we can exchange these ideas, world of meaning, world of the soul, and once we enter the world of meaning, we don't take things at face value anymore. There's always a spiritual pattern behind the seeming of things. You know, when we are the naive extrovert, we look at something and think that that is what it is. It's real. The form is real. But later we learn that only a higher form is real, and even that higher form is substantiated by pure being. So outside the world of meaning, we think the form is real, which it is not. It is empty of self, well, empty of own being, so to speak. In other words, it is not what it seems. It is a seeming. So what is it that lies behind what I sense? Well, you know, astrologers are dealing with that all the time through the faculty of spiritual reading. We relate something to a deeper cause, or to a more subtle energy, or to a hidden context. We look out into the world of the senses and we have an obvious context, but there are higher contexts in higher worlds of energy to which we want to relate. So we begin to study symbols, and we see things as if they were symbols of a higher world, rather than to study the thing in itself as if it were real. Of course, we must also do that from the scientific perspective, but we want to link everything in the lower worlds to patterns in the higher worlds. So we look at everything as a symbol which reveals a greater truth behind the symbol. And then once we reach this point, when we're aspiring towards the first initiation or have taken it, and increasingly afterwards, we no longer have superficial vision. We see behind, within, and we understand meaning, or the placement or function of any percept in relation to a greater context. Meaning, the placement or function of any percept in relation to a higher or deeper context or pattern. So the world of meaning is the world of the soul. And, you know, eventually through Antikarana building, which is, I think, you know, really accomplished more in earnest in petal number 8, but already we can vision this higher world that we want to reach. We are approaching the world of significance, which is the world of the spiritual triad, through Antikarana building. But even in a preliminary manner, in the later part of the work associated with this petal, we can do that. Well, the world of causes, it depends on what we call the world of causes. Ultimately, it's the Egoic plane, our very highest of the spheres in our cosmic physical plane, which is related to the true world of causes, but we are entering a kind of secondary world of causes as we begin to enter the first phases of causal consciousness, a kind of secondary world of wheel of consciousness, okay, world of causes is being entered with the work associated with this petal. Yeah, it really struck me when DK said that it is Shambhala, which is truly connected with the world of causes, and one thinks immediately of the Egoic plane. I think of the world of course, it's also a world of being as well. I should almost put here, remember the world of archetypal forms, which is both the second and the first subplane of the cosmic physical plane. Let's just say, the world of sevenfold archetypal form is the monadic plane. Okay. And the world of threefold archetypal form is the Egoic plane, or sea of fire. So the world of meaning is all about spiritual reading, learning that the world is a spiritual symbol, learning that the world is a spiritual symbol, and no longer looking at things as if they do not have connection to a higher context. And, the end of superficial perception and understanding, no longer taking the world of phenomenon, the contents of consciousness strictly at face value, always looking behind and within with spiritual discernment. So looking behind and within using spiritual discernment. I've talked about this. There are those three cities or powers on the higher mental plane: spiritual discernment at the third sublevel, response to group vibration at the second sublevel, and then spiritual telepathy at the first sublevel. So spiritual discernment is certainly coming into focus. Do we get the connection? We say, do we get the symbolic connection between what we perceive and that world of patterns which we do not fully perceive? So we can draw a point from here to there, and thus the plan will emerge. That's an aspect of a seventh ray section from the old commentary. So whatever we perceive outwardly has the capacity to take us inward. I can look here at a drape that is covering a window, and I can immediately see it as a symbol of a veil which veils reality. The Tibetan sometimes uses the idea of the window to deal with the degree of clarity of our perceptions. I remember he was talking to a man who had a lot of problem with glamour, and he said, well, your window is not yet clear, there's a lot of fog in it, you have to work at cleaning your window so you can see truly. And the man did, but then he lapsed and the window became clouded again. So whatever we see, we can translate into a kind of higher archetype. Okay, point number 10. Is there any Deva group or groups most associated with this petal? And I would say the Agnish Vatas are coming in here. They are the major and minor solar Petries. The Buddhi is coming into the consciousness, and that would be the higher types of Agnisurians, but we're not quite in that level. We are leaving behind the lower Agnisurians of the astral plane, but we are on our way through Agnishvatic contact to touching the higher Agnisurians. That will be even more in the next petal number 8. Agnisurians are, after all, Buddhic, and at the first degree there is an inflow of Buddhi into the soul, even though this may not be so detected in the outer life of the personality. But still, it is safe to say we are dealing with the Agnishvatas. Are there two types? Are there Agnishvatas of the lower mental plane? Usually when we use the term Agnishvata, we are referring to the higher, to the devas of the higher mental plane. And we certainly, the solar angel is a great solar Petri, is an Agnishvata, and all of its emanations into the different types of beings which substand the different aspects of the Egoic Lotus. They are Agnishvatas too. They are solar Petries too. The solar angel is in a way a group entity in emanation and works as a group with the same origin. So we're becoming more intimate now, gradually, with the solar angel, and we are more capable of following our own inner guidance, which means what do we as an ego know when that consciousness on the higher mental plane is substanded by an infusion of solar angelic presence, which we sometimes call the angel of the presence. Sometimes it's difficult to discriminate between the solar angel and the angel of the presence and to see whether they are really the same being, but I do believe that the angel of the presence is a kind of emanation of the greater solar angel. Now, the astrological cross most associated with this petal, well, it is the fixed cross, and that is the case for all of the sacrifice petals. In petal number 6, in a way, through its organizational work, or our organizational work within it, was a transition from the mutable cross to the fixed cross. And we are in the stage when the first initiation is in sight. We begin to respond to the esoteric rulers of our astrological chart, and not just to those that relate to the world of form. So this may be in a way a mutable petal, but it is still in general related to the mounting of the fixed cross, which we truly do mount at the first degree, and we could say we are mounting it in the probationary period prior to that first degree. The fixed cross is often said to begin with entry into the kingdom of souls, and the first degree. We're in a sort of stage of fixed mutable. We're not yet at the first degree when we begin our work in earnest, our strenuous and abnormal efforts in this petal, but very soon we are, and we continue working in this petal and also in petal number 8. And so it is a fixed, submutable petal in a way. Eventually it becomes simply part of the fixed cross efforts. When we do take initiation, we are definitely on the fixed cross, and in a way we take initiation in this 7th petal. The rod of initiation, rod of the Bodhisattva, in some way communicates with this petal. Does it touch it? What is the method of energy communication? We don't know, but let's just say that the energy of the rod is applied to this petal at the first degree. So when we're on the fixed cross, our life is increasingly inwardly free and outwardly bound. This is a point the Tibetan really makes for us, a very important point. And so many people say, well, I want to be free, so I don't want to submit to these spiritual disciplines. But then who or what is the I that wants to be free? It's usually the personality I that wants to be free of the imposition of Saturnian and Vulcanian disciplines. So we do have to submit to being more outwardly compelled and bound and restricted and regulated, regulus and regulation, as the first initiation is being taken. We submit ourselves to the necessary disciplines. So we do what must be done as we understand the will of the soul, and not just what you or we as a personality would like to do. Eventually, I think, though, that our deep desires, what we'd like to do or aspire to do, becomes the same as what we must do. See my voice getting a little threadbare here. Let's just say that eventually what we like to do or aspire to do becomes the same as what we must do and will to do. And that is a very important fusion, but it is preceded, I suppose, judging from my own experience and that of many others, preceded by many battles. Battles with the elemental nature. Okay. Well, it admits of endless amplification. The important thing is to be able to relate to someone and relate to yourself and understand what period you are passing through and what must be done, and then make sure that that which must be done is also that which you aspire to do. So redirecting your desires into aspirations so that that which must be done will be fulfilled. Pardon me. What is the stage of the path most associated, this number 12, with the opening of this petal? Well, what do we have in general? You know, individualization, path of evolution, long time, path of ambition, then entry into the stage of being the advanced man, who still may be ambitious, path of aspiration, probationary discipleship, and I suppose we should say, didn't include it, accepted discipleship, and then the path of initiation. Discipleship, initiation, yeah. Well, I would say probationary discipleship at first, and then discipleship, which is really the same as initiation. When we're told that the 777 spans all the way from the savage man to the disciple at the first degree, we understand that at the first degree you really do become the disciple. From some perspectives, of course, we can still be called probationary disciples because we're still being tested out before we are accepted. So I've discussed the way that probationary discipleship title can be used in different ways, but certainly we are dealing to some degree with probationary discipleship here. Before we've taken the first degree, we are dealing with discipleship once we've taken the first degree, and we become a probationary initiate. So in a way, we're on the, really, let's call it, really the path of probationary initiation. So anyway, we're off the first stage of probationary discipleship, and we are at that stage of probation where we're really preparing for the first initiation, which brings us into true discipleship. I think it's fairly clear. It's not the real path of initiation, but the path of probationary initiation. Of course, sometimes that is just generalized. So we're on this path, perhaps partially the probationary path from one perspective, until we are on are an accepted disciple. And here I think we can also begin to make our pledges. You know, we become even a pledged disciple before the first degree. We can say, before the first degree, we can be also a pledged disciple. and retain the status after the first initiation, or pledged probationary disciple anyway. And then we continue to offer our pledges even when we're accepted disciples. We are accepted and pledged disciples, as he says. But we're on a higher stage here of the probationary path. When we take the first degree, we are the true aspirant. That's what DK tells us. Tells us that every true aspirant has taken the first initiation. And in this petal, or through the touch of the rod of initiation related to this petal, we do take the first initiation. So, several things we are here, depending upon what type of work we're doing in relation to what can be unfolded in this petal. We are a higher probationary disciple. We are a disciple. We are a probationary initiate, and we, in a sense, we're on the path of initiation. We are partially here on the path of discipleship, but it does not mean accepted discipleship. I think it's much more likely to become the accepted disciple when working strenuously in petal number 8. We're on the path of probationary initiation, and part of that path of probation, a higher part of it, includes the period just before becoming the accepted disciple. Now, it seems, usually towards the second degree one would become the accepted disciple, or at least somehow midway between the first and second degree, but there was that strange anomaly where an individual who had not yet taken the first degree but was very interested in spiritual things, of course, let us keep that in mind, was or became an accepted disciple. DK accepted him into the periphery of his ashram. So just to have an avid interest in spiritual things, it can still be quite selfish, and the necessary heart development for taking the first degree may be missing. So let us look around in the world and even find those who are, reading the blue books with great interest and so forth. Are they necessarily initiates of the first degree? Well, because we had the example in DK's group of someone who was doing just that and was not a first degree initiate, we know that it's certainly possible for people like ourselves. Okay. Well, that was a little complicated, perhaps, the path of probation, probationary discipleship, the first degree, and thus real discipleship, but a continuation of probationary discipleship, which is called, in a way, the path of probationary initiation. I do not think we reach accepted discipleship generally before we are doing quite a bit of work in petal number 8 and are submitting to these tests of Scorpio. But interestingly enough, Scorpio can rule the first initiation, and if the first initiation is conferred in relation to this 7th petal, then Scorpio may be involved, and some organizational work may be going on in this stage of the probationary path, even as we are being initiated in the 7th petal. So there's so much overlap, so many little fine strands of relationship. Okay, of the 6 stages of discipleship, is there any stage most associated with this petal? And Well, I think we could say little chelateship, and then subsequently, as we move towards the second degree, I'm sorry, chela in the light, because we're moving towards accepted discipleship, which I don't think is taken so much here, but the light of knowledge is certainly growing. The light of the soul is certainly growing, so when we take the first degree in the seventh petal, you know, a phrase like in the seventh petal, we have to understand what it really means, you know, doing the things one does to develop the qualities associated with the seventh petal. And you just abbreviate all that by saying in the seventh petal. So little chelateship is a definite one, and to a degree, chela in the light, preliminarily, as we work on in the seventh petal, and in the beginning part of the eighth petal work, chela in the light, definitely. Scorpio associated with illumination, interestingly, in the phases of meditation. Can accept discipleship. Well, let's just say it is not reached here, but is being considered. Accepted discipleship so rarely comes strictly with the first degree. It all depends on when, over a period of lives, this petal is being unfolded. Well, you know, here are some speculations. Suppose you can take initiation 2, 3, and 4 in one life. Given the 30-to-3 ratio, 30 lives of Jesus, and then he takes the baptism and 3 more lives leading him to the crucifixion. We have 10 as the result. 10 times 1 is 10. So if you start with the assumption that you have taken the second degree, then in a way you're almost home. By home, one can mean the freedom from the causal body, or from a higher perspective, home will mean the sixth initiation and the return to full monadic awareness. The monad in extension is retracted into the monad on the monadic plane, and the two are again one. Excuse me. That which went forth and that which stayed at home are again one. Okay, I think that we understand we're not yet at accepted discipleship. We're not yet at really chela on the thread, chela in the aura, chela in the heart, or at the blending, the dual blending of the lights, we're not there. But we are visioning what it may mean to be the accepted disciple. And we are being supervised, as it were, by a higher chela, and we stand in the light of that higher chela who is reporting to the master. As we do later work in petal number 7, that is a possibility, and it's certainly a possibility in the kind of work we do in petal number 8 before we become the true accepted disciple. What number 14 here, what is the initiatory stage, if any, most associated with this petal? Well, as we have been saying, it is the first initiation. The first initiation, we're entering the spiritual kingdom, the kingdom of souls. We're treading the path. Those who are really treading the path have to be of the first degree, and more, we have a more intimate relationship with the solar angel. we realized that it existed by whatever name we may have called it when we were working in the latter part of the fifth petal and working in the sixth petal. There was something higher looming on ahead. We may not have had the technical knowledge to call it the solar angel, okay, but the higher power or something within me or my higher self or whatever. But now we are really attempting to live according to the laws of the soul, the very first of which is the law of sacrifice, and we've just entered the petals of sacrifice. Okay, now we have those interesting 5 stages. I wonder if I should read them. I haven't read them yet, and I feel I must do that. Orange ball. Okay, we find the orienting words. Yeah, it's a bit long, but it's marvelous, and it's called the Sublimation of the 5 human stages. So please allow me this. I think maybe I should have read it early on, but now it really becomes important to understand it. Stage 1, okay. The life has climbed the stairway long through daily use of form. Through the lesser 3, with progress slow, the long path has been traveled. And those are the lesser 3 kingdoms, right? The metallization, in vegetization, in zoonation of the monad. Another door stands open now. That is individualization. The words sound forth, enter upon the way of real desire. The life that only knows itself as form, and that's such a good, I don't know if I get into the entire interpretation of this, but that's such a good phrase. It has to do with the Hall of Ignorance, so clearly. The life that only knows itself as form enshrouds itself in vivid red, the red of known desire, and through the red all longed-for forms approach, are grasped and held, used and discarded, till the red changes to rose, and rose to palest pink, and pink to white. Of course, that speaks of the far distant future, not this particular stage. Forth flowers, then, the purest white rose of life. Marion Walter, the last living disciple in the Tibetans group that Keith Bailey and I knew very well, talked about the white rose as being the flower of the Master Kutumi. The tiny rose of living life is seen in bud, but not yet the full-blown flower, and this almost refers to that stage when we have the bud lotuses, or lotuses in bud. Stage 2, the picture changes form. Another voice, voices come from all different parts of our nature, coming from close at hand, utters another phrase. Is not coming from the remote area, is coming from our personality vehicles. The life continues on its way. And here's that other phrase, enter the field where children play and join their game. Well, we're so spiritually immature here. Awaken to the game of life, the soul passes the gate, I suppose, in a way, repeatedly into incarnation. The field is green, and on its broad expanse the many forms of the one moving life disport themselves. The reference perhaps to sports and the energetic exercise of the body. They weave the dance of life, the many patterned forms God takes. The soul enters the playground of the Lord. This is the soul in incarnation, of course, not just the soul on its own plane, and plays thereon until he sees the star with 5 bright points and says, my star. It's sort of one's destiny, one's identity, one's emergent identity, no longer as just a player on the field, but as someone distinct through the number 5, because the law of cleavages, which makes us distinct, is ruled by the number 5 and is much related here to Leo, which expresses the 5th ray. Okay, stage 3. I mean, there's more we could say, but this is just to set up the interpretation at long last. I was just kind of assuming that everybody knew this. Maybe it should have been spoken long ago. Stage 3, the way of red desire fails. It loses its allure. We no longer care for the lower desires. The playground of the sons of God no longer holds appeal. We want to be more serious and maybe even, as it were, begin to come under the influence of the star Sirius, which is also related to the 5 and the 5-pointed star of initiation. The voice which has twice sounded from out the world of form sounds now within the heart. The challenge comes. Prove thine own worth. Okay. This is so much about the individual, isn't it? Take to thyself the orange ball of thy one-pointed purpose. That orange ball, the color orange is not only 5th ray, but 1st ray as well. So we have ambition, purpose, direction, the proving of individual worth. Responsive to the sounded word, the living soul in incarnation, immersed in form, emerges from the many forms, proves itself distinct, emerges from the mass. Out there on the playing field, we have the sign Cancer, the sign of mass consciousness, emerges from the many forms and hews its onward way using the power of the 1st ray. The way of the destroyer comes, the builder and again the tearer down of forms, finding the forms which will allow us to prove our own worth. The broken forms hold not the power to satisfy. The soul's own form is now the great desire. Remember, orange is also the basic color of the egoic lotus. It's the great aspiration now. And thus there comes the entering of the playground of the mind in a way ruled by the color orange. And that color is the 5th ray color. But in these dreams and fantasies, which is our normal life, they're nothing but dreams and fantasies, at times a vision comes, a vision of a folded lotus flower, close petaled, tightly sealed, lacking aroma, but yet bathed in cold blue light, one of the colors of the higher mental plane. Of course, all this time the egoic lotus is unfolding, yes, but we're talking about really coming into relationship with the golden yellow quality of the egoic lotus. Orange and blue, complementary colors, right, in some more distant time will blended be. The higher and the lower mind, or the personality and the soul. The orange, in a sense, representing the personality, and the blue representing the soul. But orange is also, as I said, it is, from one perspective, an egoic lotus color. Orange and blue in some more distant time will blended be, but far off yet a date, considering where the man stands. Their blending bathes the bud in light and causes future opening. Let the light shine. Well, now we've gone back a little bit into the discussion of the opening of the egoic lotus, which, well, it really even happens early on in the game, but okay, but symbolically now we're talking about this whole process of the unfolding of the flower of the soul. Stage 4. Into the light, into the dark, rather, the life proceeds. Outside the pyramid, the sun shines, the flowers are blooming, opening themselves to the sun and so forth, but we're going into a stage of introversion here. A different voice seems to sound forth. It's not just the voice of form. Enter the cave and find your own in terms of soul identification. Walk in the dark and on your head carry a lighted lamp, because you are beginning to use your mind as an instrument of illumination. The cave is dark and lonely. Well, the one who begins to tread the path has to be ready for loneliness. Cold it is, it doesn't have the warmth of comfort, and a place of many sounds and voices, which have to be discriminated. The voices of the many, excuse me, the voices of the many sons of God, left playing on the playground of the Lord, make their appeal for light, because they're not really happy, and there's something within them that knows there's more. And of course, we are beginning to become light bearers as we enter the dark. It's kind of a contradiction, isn't it? We, in a way, shut out the obvious, enter something which veils the obvious, and yet within that which we enter, we find the light. The cave is long and narrow, the narrow, straight and narrow path. It takes a long time to tread it. The air is full of fog. These are glamours and miasmas, misconceptions. The sound of running waters, many desires, that is, meets the rushing sound of wind, the many thoughts, and the frequent roll of thunder. Well, it could be considered in a way the voice of the soul. His symbol is the thunder, the word, which sounds down the ages. This is in a second ray mantram. This symbol of the second ray Lord being the thunder, the word that echoes down the ages. Okay. I don't know if I'll have any voice left by the time I reach the end. Okay, far off, dim and most vaguely seen, because after all the path is long and we are more conscious now, appears an oval opening. The shape of the causal body itself can be oval or sometimes spherical. Its color blue. We're talking about the higher mental plane. Stretched athwart this space of blue, a rosy cross is seen, the transmutation of the desire and offering all up to a higher sacrificial purpose, and at the center of the cross, where forearms meet, a rose, which is the rose of full soul unfoldment, the rose of fulfilled fulfilled Christ consciousness. Upon the upper limb, a vibrant diamond shines, the jewel in the lotus, presented in another symbolic manner, with a star five-pointed, the star of initiation, within a star five-pointed, amazing and beautiful symbol. So through sacrifice, the rose of Christ's love will come to us, the will of the monad will be expressed, and the star of initiation will flash forth. The living soul, now living, notice, animated by life, drives forward towards the cross, which bars the way to the greater life, to life, revealed and known. So the aspiration is very keen now, and we must surmount the cross if we are to enter into the world of being. Not yet the cross is mounted, and therefore left behind, but onward goes the living soul, more and more animated, we can say, infused by the soul on its own plane, eyes fixed upon the cross, realizing the sacrifice that must be made, and how this fixed cross must be overturned, and ears open to the wailing cries of all his brothers, becoming ever more compassionate and less selfish. Stage 5. I mean, we could stay with this a long time, but Well, it's so beautiful. Stage 5, out into radiant life and light. The cave is left behind, including the cave of early initiations, I presume. The cross is overturned. I suppose the fourth initiation is taken. The way stands clear. The word sounds clear within the head, the true occult center, and not within the heart, because one is connected with one's monad. Enter again the playground of the Lord, and this time lead the games, become a director under the aspect of divine will. The way upon the second tier of stairs stands barred. This by the soul's own act. In other words, we cannot see yet the way of higher evolution. No longer red desire governs all the life. It's long since been transmuted, but now the clear blue flame burns strong. This is the love wisdom flame of the soul plane. Upon the bottom step of the barred way, we might go on towards the way of evolution, but we have a way of higher evolution, but we have other obligations. We turn back, we revolve upon the pedestal of light, and we pass down the stairs we have ascended onto the playground, meeting the dead shells built in earlier stages. In an earlier stage, we recognize all we have passed through. We step upon the forms discarded and destroyed. We have nothing to do with them. They no longer hold us, and holding forth the hands of helpfulness, we become the true server, as we can be when we enter the hierarchy or become the fourth degree initiate. Upon his shoulder sits the bird of peace. It is coming from the spirit of peace, from the Buddhic plane, powerful love, wisdom, the ability to bring harmony to all, and upon his feet the sandals of the messenger. Not yet the utter glory of the radiant life, not yet the entering into everlasting peace, probably not yet the fifth degree perhaps, but still the work and still the lifting of the little ones. Well, if we overturn that cross, we are freed from the tunnel, freed from the cave of initiation within the causal body, at least taking the fourth degree. But the utter glory of the radiant life, that can be monadic even, but not yet. And not yet do we as a monad tread the way of higher evolution. But still, as a fourth degree initiate, as a fifth degree initiate, the work, still the lifting of the little ones. I find it so beautiful, so very beautiful, and in all of these colors a great story is told. So now we are ready then to understand what it means, color and the 5 human stages most associated with this petal. But instead, since if I persist, I will have no voice, and certainly no voice tomorrow, I will say that this is the end of Egoic Lotus webinar commentary program 49, and we're in the synthesis of Petal 7, part 1. And it's about 2 hours or so. Let's see, should be about 2 hours. Just about, yeah. Excuse me. And the beginning of Egoic Lotus webinar commentary, program 50, synthesis of Petal 7, part 2. And we'll begin right here. I trust that in reading this, well, maybe I should have directed you to it earlier, or read it earlier, but anyway, now we're in this truly spiritually developmental phase of the work of the Egoic Lotus, and so it makes sense to read about the 5 color stages: the red, the green, the orange, and the rose and blue. Those are 5 colors. And then, of course, the life and light that is available when one overcomes the cross, and which is not described in terms of color. Okay, friends, I think that takes us about to where we want to be. There's a lot of programs in this, and I know a fair deal of repetition, but we're weaving it all together so that it is of one fabric. And instead of isolated bits of information, if you have worked through with me up to this point and beyond, it will all be one integrated fabric, and we will have a quite full understanding, reasonably full understanding of our subject in the growing light of pure reason. Not yet pure reason, that is of the fourth degree, but in the growing light which pure reason seems to shed through the growing capacity to achieve inclusive reason, working on the second ray particularly, and working with Mercury, which has its third ray component. So, farewell, and we'll see you for program 50 as soon as some of the voice returns. See you then. Bye-bye.